Jesus, Harry Potter, and fatherhood, the bond of sacrificial protection. There are stories we grow up with. And stories we only truly understand when we become parents. For me, Harry Potter was once simply a world of magic and adventure. A childhood story filled with spells, castles, and battles between good and evil. But as I grew older, especially after becoming a father, I began to see something deeper beneath the fantasy. I began to notice that the most powerful force in the story was not magic at all. It was sacrifice. I know that over the years, some Christian voices have criticized Harry Potter because of its themes of witchcraft and magic. And I understand that concern. Faith should always be careful about the things that shape our hearts and imaginations. But as a Catholic who grew up loving Harry Potter, I never felt that the story pulled me away from God. In many ways, it brought me closer to understanding certain spiritual truths. Especially one truth at the very center of Christianity, that love reaches its highest form through sacrifice. When I was younger, I saw Lily Potter's death as simply a sad moment in a fantasy novel. But after becoming a parent, I read that scene differently. Now I see a mother standing between death and her child. I see fear. I see love. And I see something profoundly human and profoundly sacred. In the Harry Potter universe, when Lily willingly gives her life to save Harry, her sacrifice creates what J.K. Rowling calls ancient magic. A protection so deep that even Voldemort, the darkest and most powerful wizard in the world, cannot overcome it. And what fascinates me most is that Rowling never explains this protection as a spell or magical technique. It is something older. Something deeper. Almost like a spiritual law written into the fabric of reality itself. And this idea is far older than Harry Potter. Across mythology, religion, and ancient cultures, humanity has always believed that sacrificial love possesses supernatural power. In Norse mythology, Odin hangs himself upon the world tree Yggdrasil for 9 days and 9 nights, sacrificing himself to gain divine wisdom. In Greek mythology, Prometheus suffers eternal punishment after giving fire to humanity. In Egyptian mythology, Osiris dies and is reborn, becoming a symbol of resurrection and eternal life. Again and again, ancient stories repeat the same pattern. True power comes through sacrifice. But nowhere is this idea more powerful than in Christianity. At the center of the Christian faith stands Jesus Christ on the cross. Not as a symbol of weakness, but as the ultimate image of sacrificial love. Jesus willingly accepts suffering and death so that others may live. And this is what makes the cross such a profound paradox. An instrument of torture becomes a symbol of hope. Death becomes victory. Suffering becomes redemption. And when I look back at Harry Potter now, I cannot help but notice the echoes of that same truth. Voldemort fears death above all things. He tears apart his own soul in order to survive. He believes immortality is achieved through domination, violence, and control. But Rowling completely reverses that logic. The one who ultimately defeats evil is not the person who clings most desperately to life. It is the person willing to give his life away for others. That is why Harry himself eventually walks willingly into death to protect his friends. Just as his mother once did for him. And in that moment, Harry becomes strongest precisely because he no longer fears sacrifice. The deeper I think about this, the more I realize that parenthood itself contains this same mystery. Fatherhood changes the way you understand sacrifice. A father gives away pieces of himself every day. His sleep. His energy. His time. His youth. His ambitions. Sometimes even his peace of mind. And mothers do the same in even deeper ways. Parents willingly carry pain so their children do not have to. And strangely, this sacrifice often does not feel meaningless. It feels sacred. There are moments when I look at my children sleeping, and I suddenly understand something about the love of God that I never fully understood before. Because if an earthly father is willing to sacrifice almost everything for his children, then how much greater must the love of God be? And maybe that is why the image of Jesus on the cross has moved humanity for over 2,000 years. Because deep inside, human beings recognize this truth instinctively: real love sacrifices. Real love protects. Real love suffers willingly for the beloved. In many ancient traditions, people believe that blood, sacrifice, and self-offering could create spiritual bonds powerful enough to transcend death itself. And perhaps that is what Rowling was drawing from when she described Lily's protection as ancient magic. Not merely fantasy magic, but something closer to a universal human intuition. That love leaves marks upon reality. That sacrifice changes the world. that willingly suffering for another person creates a bond deeper than fear, violence, or death. As a father, this idea no longer feels abstract to me. It feels real. And perhaps that is why Harry Potter still resonates so deeply with millions of people around the world. Not because we believe in spells or wands, but because beneath all the fantasy, the story speaks to something ancient already written inside the human heart. That the strongest protection comes from love willing to sacrifice itself. And that is why, for me, Harry Potter never weakened my faith. If anything, it deepened my understanding of it. Because through fantasy, mythology, and fatherhood, I came to understand the meaning of sacrificial love more clearly. And at the center of that truth, still stands Jesus Christ upon the cross.